You see that it's getting recorded? Yeah, it started.
Yes, it started. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay. With your permission, shall I begin?
Yes, please, Santi.
Dear friends, a very good afternoon to you. This is a very special occasion today. We are very fortunate to have with us doctors and psychiatrists from Samatvam giving a mini symposium on health and wellness. From my side and from our department side, we are very grateful to them as they promptly agreed for this event at a very short notice. Let me say a few words about this group, Samatvam. Okay. Samatvam Jnana Sanjeevani represents a group of healthcare and medical institutions that specialize in treating and managing diabetes with other endocrine metabolic disorders. Samatvam's motto is service with devotion. The core philosophy is the integration of science and spirituality in the context of healthcare. Founded in 1993, Samatvam, which implies equanimity, has four core service areas: healthcare, education, research, and social work. Currently, the institutions serve through four major daycare clinical facilities and several affiliated secondary and tertiary care hospitals. Every year, comprehensive and continued medical care is provided to around 25,000 people in the outpatients clinics, 5,000 more through inpatient and emergency hospital care, and very many more through the community outreach programs. Okay. The speakers, if I have missed out something and you would like to add, please do so when you take the stage. Okay. Let me now introduce the speakers. Our first speaker is Colonel B.M. Bhatt, MD and FRCP, a graduate of AFMC Pune and MD Internal Medicine also from Pune. Colonel Bhatt had served in the Indian Navy for 5 years and participated actively during the Indo-Pak War of 1971. He subsequently moved to UK for further training, worked in the NHS, was accredited in internal medicine after MRCP, and later elected FRCP. He has also served in the British Army as consultant physician and served in the war zones of Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and retired in 2006. He is currently the Honorable CEO and trustee at Samatvam Trust. Our second speaker today is Dr. Vikram Prabhu, MD, consultant psychiatrist. Dr. Prabhu is a psychiatrist with 30 years of experience in Jayanagar, Bangalore. He practices at Sagar Hospitals in Jayanagar, Bangalore, Ramakrishna Super Speciality Hospital in Jayanagar, Bangalore. He completed MBBS from Kasturba Medical College, Bangalore, Manipal University, Karnataka in 1985, and MD Psychiatry from NIMHANS in 1989. He has also trained at Washington University, St. Louis, and at Albany Medical Center, Albany, USA from 1990 to 1992. His areas of interest are philately, Indian philosophy, and spirituality. Our third speaker for today is Dr. S. Srikanta, MD, AIMS, PhD, FEDM, FACE, USA, Honorable FRCP, London. First and foremost, Dr. Srikanta is the illustrious son of Dr. N.S. Satyanarayana, the 96-year, a most revered family physician of Karnataka, India, a former leader of Indian Medical Association, and a silent social worker. Dr. S. Srikanta is a distinguished consultant endocrinology, diabetes medicine, and gardener, that is mentor. Former medical director, Samatvam Endocrinology Diabetes Center, Jnana Sanjeevani Medical Center and Diabetes Hospital. Founder and former managing trustee, Samatvam Science and Research for Human Welfare Trust. Premier healthcare institutions focusing on science, spirituality synthesis in the context of healthcare, education, research, social work, and charity in Bangalore in India, where he is working since 1993. He is a graduate of Bangalore Medical College, 1971, and a postgraduate MD from AIMS, New Delhi, 1978. He was a fellow in endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism from Duke University Medical Center, USA. He was a fellow, faculty, and investigator, endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism at Harvard Medical School, Brigham and Women's Hospital, Joslin Diabetes Center, USA in 1982. After returning to India in 1987, relevant to the contemporary Indian society, his research and service focused changed almost diametrically from molecular biology to molecular sociology of diabetes mellitus. He served in 1988 as Assistant Director, Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism at AIIMS, New Delhi. He has also served as Professor and Head of Department, Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism and Chief Center for Endocrine Sciences at Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Lucknow. He was a visiting professor at University of Minnesota, Minneapolis, and visiting clinician at Mayo Clinic, Rochester, and University of Michigan Medical Center, Ann Arbor, USA. He is a fellow of American College of Endocrinology and honorary fellow of Royal College of Physicians, London. I now give the floor to our first speaker, Dr. Bhatt, and he's going to introduce the general idea of health and wellness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Venkatasanti. Also, thanks to Professor Ananta Suresh, Professor Navkant Bhatt, faculty, students, and staff at Indian Institute of Science, and Dr. Shrikanta for giving us this opportunity to speak on the subject of health and wellness. Health is a state of being. Health refers to physical, mental, and social well-being, whereas wellness is the state of living a healthy lifestyle. Wellness aims to enhance well-being. Why not take a step back and ask, what exactly is health and wellness? Health and wellness are terms that are often interchanged, but their origins and meanings are different. World Health Organization in the 1940s referred to health as a state of complete, I re-emphasize the word complete, physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. It really is a utopic vision. This definition has been criticized for being overly inclusive and unattainable, especially as it relates to the word complete. But very importantly, it broadens the medical definition of health beyond the simple absence of disease. According to the World Health Organization, the prime determinants of health include the social, economic, and physical environments and the person's individual characteristics and behaviors. Health matters are largely left to the healthcare professionals. For an individual, it ideally should start before conception. For example, in diabetes, a girl who intends to start a family should have optimal blood sugar control even before she gets pregnant. Then genetic testing, for example, like for thalassemia, where the couple get counseled, post-delivery checks and vaccination, and continued health checks throughout life with an emphasis on prevention and early detection of disease rather than intervention once disease rears its ugly head. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Yeah, thank you. The maintenance and improvement of health accordingly depends not only on external or environmental factors, which includes the systems of care, but also on the efforts and intelligent life choices of the person. In fact, it depends on wellness. Now, coming to wellness, you may be surprised by the definition of wellness. Although variously defined depending on context, wellness is considered an active process through which people become aware of and make choices towards a more successful existence. Wellness is a state of living a healthier lifestyle. And the definition is based on three tenets and something that you and I can do. Wellness is considered a conscious, self-directed, and evolving process of achieving one's full potential. Wellness is multidimensional and holistic, encompassing lifestyle, mental and spiritual well-being, and the environment. Wellness is positive and affirming. The main barriers to wellness are incorrect nutrition, lack of exercise, and lack of ability to rest and recuperate. To repeat, wellness is always a matter of choice. Now, a few words on stress, mental health, spirituality, and COVID-19. Stress and stressors. Life in practice is undoubtedly fraught with stresses, and so much so that we can and should question whether they are threatening the health and wellness. Dr. Vikram Prabhu will speak more on stress management. Mental health. What are the barriers, facilitators, and interventions targeting help seeking behaviors for common mental health problems in young people? Increasing rates of mental health problems amongst adolescents and young adults are of concern. Teens and young adults who are most in need of mental health attention are reluctant to seek help. A better understanding of the help seeking in this population is needed to overcome this gap. And more of this by Dr. Vikram Prabhu. Spirituality. Dr. Srikanta will give an inspirational talk on spirituality, which is a fourth dimension in the World Health Organization definition and one of the dimensions in wellness. Finally, a few words on COVID-19. It would not go amiss if I mention a few words here about COVID and health and wellness. We are in a time of massive upheaval. There are so many things outside of our control, including how long the pandemic will last, how other people behave, and what's going to happen in our communities. That's a tough thing to accept. And so many of us respond by endlessly searching the internet for answers and thinking over all the different scenarios that might happen. But as long as we are focusing on questions with unknowable answers and circumstances outside of our personal control, this strategy will get us nowhere, aside from feeling drained, anxious, and overwhelmed. When you feel yourself getting caught up in fear of what might happen, try to shift your focus to things you can control. For example, you can't control how severe the coronavirus outbreak is in your own city or town, but you can take steps to reduce your own personal risk and the risk you'll unknowingly spread it to, and the risk that you will unknowingly spread it to others. And the things you could do is washing your hands frequently, avoiding touching your face, particularly eyes, nose, and mouth, avoiding crowds, avoiding all non-essential shopping and traveling, keeping 6 feet of distance between yourself and others when out, getting plenty of sleep, which helps support your immune system, and following all the recommendations from the health authorities. Stay connected even when physically isolated. Evidence shows that many people with coronavirus, particularly young, seemingly healthy people, don't have symptoms but can still spread the virus. That's why the biggest thing that most people can do right now is to make a positive difference is to practice social distancing. But social distancing comes with its own risks. Humans are social animals. We are hardwired for connection. Isolation and loneliness can exacerbate anxiety and depression and even impact our physical health. That's why it's important to stay connected as best as we can and reach out for support when we need it, even as we cut back on in-person socializing. Make it a priority to stay in touch with friends and family. If you tend to withdraw when depressed or anxious, think about scheduling regular phone, chat, or Zoom dates to counteract the tendency. When in-person visits are limited, substitute video chatting. Face-to-face contact is like a vitamin for your mental health. Reduce your risk of depression and helping ease stress and anxiety. Social media can be a powerful tool, not only for connecting with friends, family, and acquaintances, but for feeling connected in a greater sense to our communities, country, and the world. It reminds us we are not alone. That said, be mindful how social media is making you feel. Don't hesitate to mute keywords or people who are exacerbating your anxiety and log off if it's making you feel worse. Don't let coronavirus dominate every conversation. It's important to take breaks from stressful thoughts about the pandemic, to simply enjoy each other's company, to laugh, share stories, and focus on other things going on in our lives. So, thank you very much. That's the little introduction to the overview of today's health and wellness talks. I will now uh, go on to the wellness presentation. And Dr. Kavita is slightly indisposed, and therefore unable to do this presentation, and I've taken over, and I'll start the presentation in just a tick. So much of the slides were prepared by Kavita, and of course I'm presenting. It's a presentation on wellness. And to repeat again, wellness is the state of living a healthy lifestyle. It aims to enhance well-being, whereas health refers to physical, mental, and social well-being. There are 6 dimensions to wellness. It's environmental, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, and spiritual. In this lecture, I'll concentrate on the physical dimension of wellness. The physical dimension of wellness requires eating well, exercising regularly, avoiding harmful habits, and making responsible decisions about your lifestyle. By being proactive in your health, your positive daily choices will give you more energy and endurance, enhance your self-esteem, affect how many years you live, and more importantly, how well you live your years. Coming to nutrition and physical activity, we'll talk about food and its immunity enhancing properties, gut and the immune system, question whether immune boosting diets really exist, and a short note on mindful eating. And about physical activity, I may give you some guidelines for physical activity, some 10 ideas for staying active, and question whether we do really need 10,000 steps per day. Our immune system on a daily basis, we are constantly exposed to potentially harmful microbes of all sorts. Our immune system, a network of intricate stages and pathways in the body, protects us against these harmful microbes as well as certain diseases. It recognizes foreign invaders like bacteria, viruses, and parasites and takes immediate action. We humans possess 2 types of immunity. The first one is innate immunity that we are born with, like protective barriers such as our skin, mucus, stomach acid, enzymes, and the immune system cells. And adaptive or acquired immunity, a system that learns to recognize and attack a pathogen that enters a body. However, a range of factors can depress the immune system, such as environmental toxins, smoke and other particles contributing to air pollution, certain diseases, for example, the autoimmune disorders and immunodeficiency disorders, excess weight, chronic stress, lack of sleep, and poor diet. Gut is a major site of immune activity and the production of antimicrobial proteins. Our diet plays a large role in determining what kinds of microbes live in our intestine. A high fiber plant rich diet with plenty of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains appears to support the growth and maintenance of beneficial microbes. Eating enough nutrients as part of one's diet is required for the health and function of all cells, including immune cells. Examples of nutrients that have been identified as critical for the growth and function of immune cells include several micronutrients, which are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, selenium, iron, proteins, etc. Certain dietary patterns may better prepare the body for microbial attacks and excess inflammation, but it is unlikely that individual foods offer special protection. There is also no conclusive, unequivocal clinical proof of efficacy of most nutraceuticals or immune boosting foods. Prebiotics. This is a new word that I came across. Prebiotics are foods, typically high fiber foods and fermented foods that act as food for human microflora. Prebiotics are used with the intention of improving the balance of these microorganisms. Certain helpful microbes break down fibers into short chain fatty acids, which have been shown to stimulate immune cell activity. Prebiotic foods include garlic, onions, cabbage, banana, asparagus, etc. However, a more general rule is to eat a variety of vegetables, legumes such as beans, peas, lentils, and whole grains for prebiotics. What about probiotics? Foods contain live, helpful, good bacteria like those naturally found in the gut. This functional component may boost immunity and overall health, especially GI health. Probiotic foods include yogurt, buttermilk, and fermented food. Therefore, a diet containing probiotic and prebiotic foods may be beneficial. Do vitamin or herbal supplements help? A deficiency of just a single nutrient can alter the body's immune response. Studies have found that deficiencies in zinc, selenium, iron, copper, folic acid, and vitamins A, B6, C, D, and E can alter immune responses. These nutrients help the immune system in several ways, working as an antioxidant to protect healthy cells, supporting growth and activity of immune cells, and producing antibodies. Eating a good quality diet can prevent deficiencies in these nutrients. However, there are certain situations in which one cannot always eat a variety of nutritious foods and certain populations that have increased nutrient needs. Low-income households, pregnant and lactating women, infants and toddlers, elderly and the critically ill are examples of groups at risk. In these cases, a vitamin and mineral supplement may help fill the nutritional gap. A general vitamin mineral supplement providing the recommended dietary allowance RDA may be used in these cases unless otherwise directed by one's physicians. Megadose supplements, many times the RDA, do not appear justified and can sometimes be harmful or even suppress the immune system. Remember that supplements are not a substitute for good diet because no supplement contains all the benefits of healthful foods. 8 steps to help support a healthy immune system. Eat a balanced diet with whole fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and plenty of water. I must add nuts here. Handful of nuts a day will actually keep the doctor away. If a balanced diet is not readily accessible, take a multivitamin containing the RDA for several nutrients may be used. Don't smoke or stop smoking. Drink alcohol in moderation. Many of you won't like that. Perform moderate regular exercise. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep nightly. Try to keep a sleep schedule, waking up and going to bed around the same time each day. Aim to manage stress. This is easier said than done, but try to find some healthy strategies that work well for you and your lifestyle, whether that be exercise, meditation, a particular hobby, or talking to your trusted friend. Wash hands when coming in from outdoors, before and after preparing and eating food, and after coughing or blowing your nose. This is an interesting slide. This a little bit about using healthy oils. This lecture is aimed at people who are educated and affluent. But olive oil and canola oil is extraordinarily costly. So really, that doesn't fit in to advise the masses. Of course, one should avoid trans fat. Eat more vegetables and fruits. Drink enough water, at least 3 liters of water per day, so that you pass at least 1 white urine per day. Eat a variety of whole grains and eat lean meat. This interesting word, mindful eating. This approach focuses on the eating experience, body-related sensations, and thoughts and feelings about food with heightened awareness. Mindful eating stems from the broader philosophy of mindfulness, a widespread centuries-old practice used in many religions. Mindfulness is an intentional focus on one's thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations in the present moment. Eating mindfully means that you are using all of your physical and emotional senses to experience and enjoy the food choices you make. This helps to increase gratitude for food, which can improve the overall eating experience. Mindful eating encourages one to make choices that will be satisfying and nourishing to the body. Mindful eating model is guided by 4 aspects: what to eat, why we eat, how much to eat, and how to eat. Research has shown that mindful eating can lead to a greater psychological well-being, increased pleasure when eating, and body satisfaction. Combining behavioral strategies such as mindful training with nutrition knowledge may lead to healthful food choices that reduce the risk of chronic diseases, promote more enjoyable meal experiences, and support a healthy body image. More research is needed to examine whether mindful eating is an effective strategy for weight management. This may look like a busy slide, but it's a very good slide. And the first one is honor the food. We have in our own culture that we say a few prayers before we start a meal. At least the men do it. But the Western and the Christians always say grace before meals. And that is the beginning of starting of any meal. Engage all your senses to the sound, colors, smell, and taste and textures of the food that you eat. Serve in modest portions. Savor small bites and chew thoroughly. Eat slowly to avoid overeating. Don't skip meals and eat plant-based foods, and that will save your health and the planet. We come to physical activity now. Beyond weight management, exercise plays a key role in our overall well-being. How do you choose an exercise? There are different exercises, how often you do it, how long you do it, and how vigorous your exercise should be. There are 4 different types of exercises. You have aerobic and cardiovascular physical activity, muscle strengthening activity, and the third one is flexibility training. I won't go into details about these things. All of you are highly educated people, but I'll go to the most easiest and highly recommended form of exercise. But just a word about balance training for elderly folks. These activities are intended to throw off one's balance to improve body control and stability. They can help to prevent falls and other injuries. And examples are standing on one foot, walking heel to toe in a perfectly straight line, standing on a balance or wobble board, etc. We'll skip this children's exercise. We'll skip this activity for adults and women and pregnant, women who are pregnant and postpartum women. We'll concentrate on adults with physical disabilities and chronic conditions. It's important because one should follow guidelines and similar activity guidelines as those for adults, but if able to exercise, but discuss with one's doctor about the types and amount of activity that would be appropriate for specific conditions. And older adults follow similar activity guidelines as those for adults, but also focus on balance training. Discussing the start of a new exercise regime with one's doctor is a good practice for all ages, but it is especially important with the older age group because of the higher likelihood of health conditions and physical limitations that may require modified exercises. I'll skip this one and this one. This one I think I should talk. Start low and go slow. Set short-term goals. Start low activity intensity exercise like walking, gardening, stationary, cycling. Split the workout. Split with short sessions. Fitness better with higher energy and intensity in shorter bouts than getting fatigued due to long hours. Sign up for a class or an event, gym, yoga, community center, charity walks, etc. Reward yourself. Positive affirmations are key to building confidence. Now, this is the one that I want to concentrate. You all live in a beautiful sylvan environment in the Indian Institute of Science. Walking is one of the most popular forms of exercise worldwide, and it's the cheapest one and the safest exercise for all age groups. You can go out walking with your family, but walking, when you walk going shopping, that is no exercise at all. The minimum requirement when you walk as an exercise is that you should be walking briskly. You must increase your heart rate by at least up to 120. Otherwise, it's not an exercise. Walking as an exercise that meets this aerobic component and is associated with improving high blood pressure and body mass index and lowering the risk of diabetes, stroke, and cardiovascular disease and early death. It helps to boost energy levels by releasing certain hormones like endorphins and delivering oxygen throughout the body. And you need to make this an absolute religious affair. You must go out. You should not say it's raining now, it's too hot, it's too cold. We used to go running in the forests and hills when we were training, and I was serving in the Indian British Army, and we had no excuse. Whether there was sunshine, rain, snow, or cold winter, we would go running, even fall, slip and fall, but we did it every single day for half an hour. And that is the discipline you need to adopt if you want to really benefit from exercise. All that you need is a good pair of walking shoes. Brisk walking is considered a moderate intensity, low impact workout that does not exert excess strain on joints that are susceptible to injury with higher impact workouts. The fitness benefits are clear, but what you may not realize is that walking may also offer psychological perks and can decrease negative moods like depression, anxiety, anger, fatigue, and confusion. Often, if I go out for a walk, I cool down and I can think a lot of things that I need to do or set things right. So it gives you a free time to contemplate as you walk and also enjoy the scenery. But when you walk, walk facing the traffic and let the traffic not come behind you, so that you can dodge the traffic in the streets of India. But if in your own beautiful Sylvian environment in the Indian Institute of Science, you have no such fears. So finally, do I really need to take 10,000 steps per day? It may surprise you to learn that the benchmark number of 10,000 steps is not based on science, but was created as a marketing tactic in the 1960s by a company making pedometers. So is there any evidence to support stepping it up? Generally, research finds that more steps are better, but even a lower amount can achieve health benefits. There's nothing wrong with aiming for 10,000 steps or even higher, except when it becomes so daunting that you lose motivation or you feel discouraged that a lesser amount is not good enough. Rather than feeling chained to a specific step count, listen to your body, challenge it, and feel good about what it can accomplish. So, a few takeaway points. Nutrition. We have known for a long time that nutrition is intricately linked to immunity. Poorly nourished individuals are at a greater risk of various bacterial, viral, and other infections. Conversely, chronic or severe infections lead to nutritional disorders or worsen the nutritional status of affected people. Therefore, it is imperative for all of us to pay attention to our diet and nutritional status during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and stay healthy and fit. Although many people view exercise as a way to lose weight, it plays a key role in the well-being of the body beyond weight loss. Research strongly supports its benefits across a range of physical and mental health conditions for people of all ages. However busy your lifestyle is, let's motivate ourselves to start exercise of any kind now. A few words about well women. Women are given importance in our culture, but still, not just in our country, but the rest of the world, they are second class citizens. And what we need to look at is that from cradle to old age, women should be treated in a very special manner. And they run well women clinics, I think even in Bangalore and abroad. And they deal with adolescents and teenagers, menstrual health hygiene, premarital counseling, pregnancy, post-delivery, reproductive health, preventive gynecology, also includes breast examination, menopausal health, osteoporosis, thyroid disorders, vitamin D deficiency, and sexual health. I will not go through this list of questions that people come up with. So, thank you all very much. Stay safe, stay well, and stay happy. Thank you. Dr. Prabhu, you need to take over now.
On. Screen sharing.
Banu, you stop sharing your screen.
Right, okay. I need to put stop sharing, correct.
Okay.
So it can.
Good afternoon. Echo. There's an echo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, is there an echo that you're hearing, or am I clearly audible?
There is an echo, sir. There is an echo.
Hmm. Okay. I will begin the session. At the very outset, I would like to thank Dr. Shrikanta, who was instrumental in requesting me also to participate, and it's my privilege. Uh, and I would also like to thank his entire team at Samatvam. I would also like to begin by thanking Colonel Bhatt, who liaised with me and who has set the right tone for the beginning of this interaction. I also want to thank Professor Venkata Sonti, who has taken this great initiative with his entire team at the Indian Institute of Science. Now, a lot of times, doctors in general and even psychiatrists included tend to only talk about pathology. We are all trained to treat. Actually, really speaking, we are also supposed to look into prevention. What is health? And I really liked what Colonel Bhatt spoke about wellness. You know, when I was a student, we only thought about health. The definition of health was no doubt there, but we spoke about wellness and prevention maybe only in preventive medicine. Otherwise, it doesn't get emphasized so much in the entire medical curriculum. So what I did was I changed the topic a little bit, and what I thought we'll title it as is let's talk about mental health matters because mental health matters. So there's no health without mental health. All right. Now, what I thought uh, I'll do is talk a little about the science of mental health. What exactly would mental health be? Now, uh, the World Health Organization, I think that comes a little bit later, uh, has defined health as a complete state of well-being. In that, there is physical, psychological, or mental, social, and even a spiritual dimension. And it is not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So health is a positive state. It is not just the absence of something. In other words, it's not a zero. It's not that ill health is minus, health is zero. Health is a plus. If you plot it along a number line, it is a positive state. Now, when it comes to psychology or mental health, there have been three conceptions of health. One is pathos. This is what doctors, we always talk about pathology. That is meaning suffering or an emotion evoking sympathy. Then there is this other term, salus, meaning health. The salutogenic approach views health as the presence of positive states of human capacities and functioning. So that is slightly, something more positive. But I would say this concept of hale, we talk about he's a hale and healthy person. So hale means whole, wholesome. This approach is exemplified in the World Health Organization definition of health as a complete state. So that wellness or completeness comes in this state of hale, consisting of the presence of positive state of human capacities and functioning, as well as the absence of infirmity. Therefore, mental health is not merely the absence of psychopathology or abnormal thoughts, feeling, and behavior, but the presence of sufficient levels of emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So there is a emotional, psychological, and social aspect. There are three dimensions to this. Now, the US Public Health Service in 1999 came up with this. Mental health is thus a state of successful performance of mental health function resulting in the productive activities. You see, you're productive. fulfilling relationships, and the ability to adapt. That is very important because we all live. Now there is this whole pandemic of COVID-19. So the environment that we live in is a very dynamic one. It is not static. And all the time there are pulls and pushes, and this ability to adapt, to change, and to cope with adversity, that is a positive state of mental health. So I would again like to emphasize this. It's not merely the absence of pathology. If you need not have abnormal behavior or abnormal functioning alone, but it is something much more positive. So when it comes to that positivity, one should have productive activities, fulfilling relationships, as you know, uh, Colonel Bhatt said, man is a social animal. So it also takes into this dimension of social functioning and the ability to adapt, to change, and to cope with adversity. In 2004, the World Health Organization published a report on mental health and conceptualized it as not merely the absence of mental illness, but the presence of a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. This again is a reframing of what the US Surgeon General had mentioned. So it's very important that not only, see, I remember John Donne saying, no man is an island. So this emphasizes that if a man is or a person is very secluded, isolated, living in an ivory tower, that may not constitute a the wholesome concept of mental health, because it's the individual, the society, the family, and maybe the country at large, all taken into consideration here. So there is a term that which is very often used. It's called interbeing. Everyone is interlinked. There's this concept of eudaimonia. It's a Greek word translated as happiness or welfare. However, it is more accurate to translate it as human flourishing. So flourishing, prosperity, and blessedness. So the concept as, of course, it's a very old term. If it is Greek, it's uh, you can date it back to antiquity. But this concept has been borrowed in modern day psychology, and we use the word flourishing to prosper and to be blessed, feel blessed. We use this common phrase, count your blessings. So here we are emphasizing that. So there is this entire field of positive psychology, and this probably has come in to existence in the last maybe 3 or 4 decades. There was this uh, Martin Seligman, who uh, is considered to be the founder of this. If you really look at it, maybe in our country and in a lot of the Eastern cultures, maybe even in Greece, this was always there. But then they have brought it to the realm of modern science. So what is this positive psychology? We spoke of eudaimonia, where it is being in a state of flourishing, happiness, feeling blessed. So there are 6 dimensions which are listed here. One is self-discovery. The second one is perceived development of one's best potentials. It's like a seed, The seed has a potential. When you see a seed, can you visualize a tree which is bearing fruit that is having the potential? So you try to realize your full potential, a sense of purpose and meaning in life. So one feels that there is something, there is meaning, there is a sense of purpose, investment of significant effort in pursuit of excellence. So a lot of people try to pursue perfectionism, or they want to score a 10 out of 10. But here we are talking about excellence. You try to excel in whatever you do. There is intense involvement in activities. So you sort of try to give it your full best. Enjoyment of activities as personally expressive. So whatever the person does is also enjoyable, and it is not just a drudgery. So positive psychology, this movement of psychology, has classified people into flourishers. Now, flourishers are those who experience a lot of positive emotions like love, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion. These are all positive emotions. Uh, Positive psychological and social functioning. So they have warm, enduring, fulfilling relationships. And then we have the languishers. You have flourishers and you have the languishers. So the languishers have more of negative states of emotion and experience. Negativity, you can list out a lot of negative emotions also and negative states of thinking, and they are sort of caught in that conundrum, I would say. Now, there have been some studies which have been done in the Western countries, large scale, population surveys, and it was found that maybe about 20% or less than that were flourishers. So out of 100, maybe around 20% or so were flourishers. About 10% of the people were languishers. 50% probably had moderate level of mental functioning, and maybe 20% had diagnosable mental disorders. Now, I would like to say this. Uh, if you are sort of languishing, there is a lot of negativity, then that may sort of push you or make you vulnerable to having a mental disorder, maybe something like an anxiety disorder or a depression, or have a lot of adjustment disorders. So this is one thing. Now, the next thing I just wanted to briefly mention was this concept of emerging adults. Normally, we talk about uh, childhood, and then we'll talk about adolescence, which is the transition period from childhood to adulthood, and then we go on to adulthood. But then there is this concept of emerging adulthood, which is a more recent concept. And this period of life is from 18 to 29 years. So technically speaking, when you turn 18, you are eligible to vote. You get a driver's license. And a lot of people in the West may move out of their homes, and you're legally speaking, you're a full-blown adult. But are you really an adult? I would say this 18, and mind you, this concept is based on science, because one thing that is known is that the brain, if you see the brain of a newborn, uh, and then in the first 1 year of infancy, there's a lot of growth. And if you see after birth, the baby attains a lot of milestones. The neck holding, it starts sitting up, it stands and it walks. It develops speech, maybe a little bit at the end of 1 year. Now, how does all this occur? It occurs because there's a very rapid development of the brain. And a lot of it is accompanied by the nerve cells developing the coating called myelin. So as this myelination and the nerves develop, all these skills start developing. And it is also known during adolescence, that is, let us say, from the age of 12, 13, right up to about 17, 18, the brain again undergoes its rapid restructuring of the brain. There's a lot of what we call pruning. Pruning, in Bangalore, Colonel Bhatt was talking about your sylvan surroundings in the Indian Institute of Science, but all those trees are periodically pruned. The people from the electricity board or the forest department come and prune the branches, because when it rains, they fall on the electric wires. You need to prune. It's not that everything when it all blossoms or grows, it's good. If you don't prune plants, then the growth may be haphazard. So similarly, the brain during adolescence undergoes a lot of pruning of the nerve cells. And if that pruning is not proper, then it predisposes you to certain disorders. For example, a lot of psychotic disorders result due to improper pruning. Now, it is known that from 18 to 29, the brain is again restructuring a lot. For example, this area of the brain, I'm pointing to my forehead. Here lies the prefrontal cortex, which is the largest part of the human brain and the most well developed, which makes us what we are. It's responsible for our uniqueness from other species. So a lot of development goes on in that part of the brain, and that is responsible for making us responsible human beings. Our judgment, our a sense of responsibility, our sense of abstract thinking, planning, execution, all this goes on in this area of the brain that is in the frontal lobes. And this frontal lobes, they develop a lot during this period. And that is why I think, just by turning 18, we are not into adulthood. Technically, we may be, legally, we may be, but when it comes to behavior, they are transiting from adolescence to adulthood. And it is a time for change and exploration and possible life directions. Now, I dealt on this because I presume a lot of the audience that are that I'm addressing belong to this group. A lot of the students on the campus of Indian Institute of Science might be in this age group. So I think it is aware. It's important to be aware that this is what you are in and not get disillusioned. Why am I like this? Or allow a sense of what shall I say, desperation or pessimism to set in, because you're all growing and evolving. So emerging adults are beginning to struggle with important life choices: career, life partner or marriage, and what constitutes success. I think during this phase, a lot of us will take off on our career trajectories, choose life partners or get married, or consider matrimony at least. What constitutes success? And we try to have a vision for ourselves. The constraints of childhood are gone, but the full adult responsibilities of career and family are yet to be shouldered, and that can be quite daunting. There's a lot of uncertainty. There are many choices which can be overwhelming. Imagine, when you go to Baskin Robbins, you have 32 flavors, and sometimes you wonder, what should I take? So when you have a bewildering array of choices before you, it can be a bit overwhelming. If you're presented just with vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate, which used to be the case when I was young, it's very easy. But you have a bewildering, range of choices, and we have to do a lot of processing and evaluation. So there is a fear of trying, not trying, and failing. Emerging adults thus struggle to balance the freedom of choice and opportunity. So I always tell youngsters whom I see, you're in the right place, and that is Bangalore. There's a sea of opportunity. India is waiting for you, and the world beckons you. Let's forget what's going on right now, because this is all temporary. For a young person, even if 1 year goes like this, what happens? If I'm 18 and I only turn 19 next year, 1 or 2 years, doesn't matter. Have a long-term view. That is very important. So emerging adults are struggling to balance the freedom of choice and opportunity with their expectation of success and fear of failure. Emerging adults probably need to recognize that what will make them adults is a certain level of maturity and wisdom, and they need to achieve it. So that's why I emphasize, if you take this in the perspective of neuroscience, that your brains are, very plastic. You see, this is the other concept that I would like to talk about a little bit. When I was a student, they said that a lot of our nerve cells cannot regenerate, they cannot grow, and if you have any kind of injury or assault or insult to the brain, that's it. But today we know that there is plasticity, neuronal plasticity, and a lot of that can go on by environmental influences and what we do. So engaging in certain behaviors and exercises can make us more mature, and we can develop wisdom. Knowledge is one thing, wisdom is another thing, but these are all achievable goals. So that is very important. Now, I'll just speak a little bit about stress and psychiatric disorders. See, it is a popular notion that stress causes psychiatric disorders. Stress is experienced by all of us at some time or the other. And to say that now is an understatement, I think. If you look at the entire global scenario in India, what we went through in the month of June, when we were, taken aback by the behavior of a neighboring country. And then we had amidst a raging pandemic. And now what is going on in the Middle East, and then we have our own the pandemic, the second wave coming. All this is going on simultaneously, and we are all wondering what is happening now. This is a global stress, and I don't think there are two ways about it. This is stressful for all of us. This is stressful for all of us. The problem is determining what constitutes a stressful environment. So again, I'm talking about the microcosm for an individual. What is stressful for one need not be so for another. For example, public speaking. Someone may be very comfortable going on the stage and speaking, but someone else may shudder and avoid that. But some events are stressful to all. That's what I said. See, all these global events that are taking place and are unfolding, I would say, this is all going to go on. There's a lot of uncertainty. They are stressful to all. For example, the death of a loved one. A lot of people are seeing illness, severe illness. It's stressful to all. It's a universal stressor. There's no two ways about it. A key component of stress seems to be whether the individual can control the experience. The lack of it can make the situation stressful. And that's what I meant. This whole thing about COVID, you feel sometimes a bit helpless as things unfold. What can I do? What can I do? Now, Bruce McEwen championed the term allostasis. We all talk about homeostasis. Students of biology, we talk about homeostasis or maintaining the milieu interior of a cell. Now there is this term called allostasis. I think it was introduced somewhere around 1992 or 93. It describes how the body changes its set point in response to stress. It's like a thermostat. In other words, the body adjusts its function and activity in an upward or downward direction depending on the stress load. Over a period of time, chronic stress results in wear and tear on the body, and that is called the allostatic load. And at times, these changes are overwhelming. Chronic stress is not good for the brain. Now, this is very important. I'll just dwell a little bit on this. If someone has stress for a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks, that is one thing. But if stress is persistent, it goes on for weeks, months, years, it's definitely not good for the brain. Acute stress primarily evokes the response of what we would call the fight or flight response. Either you face it or you run away from it. And probably what happens is it activates your, uh, noradrenaline and adrenaline. Your adrenal glands secrete this and it's over. You're done with it. A day or two and it's all done. But chronic stress, when the stress goes on for a longer time. Now, for example, the COVID stress, it's going on. It's over a year now. It's a chronic stress. What does chronic stress do? I'll just put it in one sentence. It can activate something different. It can, as I said, it can cause allostatic load. And what happens is there is the activation of the adrenal cortex and you have a lot of cortisol getting secreted. Now this cortisol is not very good. If it goes on for a prolonged period of time, it's not good for the brain and it shrinks an area of the brain called the hippocampus. Now I'll point to this area of my head. These are the temporal lobes, and deep within the temporal lobes slightly is this area called the hippocampus. Hippocampus literally means a seahorse. It's a very small area, and that is responsible for our memories. What we learn and what we process is the hippocampus, and it's not good for the hippocampus. Now we'll just go a little bit to the stress management. What to do? All right, we spoke about stress. The first thing is self-observation. It is very important to become aware. So I would say, let this be the take-home message. Become aware of how you respond to problem situations. Maintain a diary. Have antecedents. That is what led What were the triggers? How did I behave? And the consequences of my behavior. Cognitive restructuring. See, once we are aware about the antecedents, the behavior and the consequences, we are aware of the patterns and the becoming aware of and changing maladaptive thoughts, beliefs and expectations. The emotional reaction sometimes may be excessive and prolonged due to perceptions or thoughts which are distorted. So I may be misperceiving or distorting in a dysfunctional manner what is happening. So analyzing these thoughts makes us know or realize that we are probably not behaving in an appropriate manner, and we can change that. And that we do by challenging these thoughts and taking a more rational, realistic or rational stand. Sorry. Now, the other thing we can also do is practicing relaxation. Now, for example, if there is light in a room, there is no place for darkness. Or if there is darkness in a room, we switch on the light. Similarly, by practicing relaxation techniques, our body is able to either prevent the consequences, disastrous consequences of stress, or we can ward off stress. It's like a shield. So there are various techniques. This is a big topic, but deep breathing, simple diaphragmatic breathing, meditation, yoga. I won't go into a lot of this. And what uh, Colonel Bhatt spoke about, being mindful helps a lot. Now, time management is another thing. Often helps to restore a sense of balance to our lives, to be aware of current patterns of time use, set priorities, what is urgent and what is important, goal setting in a time frame. Problem solving. See, this is another thing. It's a very simple technique, identifying the problem, generating alternatives. This brainstorming is you try to generate all the possible solutions to the problem, evaluate each solution and choose the best one and then implement it. So this sort of an approach to any problem, and one has to be a bit relaxed. You have to take a step back and not rush into, otherwise it is like mosquito swatting. Now, resilience, I just want to dwell on this a little bit. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to learn from failure, to be motivated by challenges, and to believe in one's abilities to deal with stress and difficulties in life. So it is the ability, the ability to resist and not to get overcome, basically. The World Health Organization has linked positive states of well-being to resilience. Psychological resilience is conceptualized as a multidimensional construct that includes self-efficacy, tenacity. Sorry. You don't give up that easily. The ability to persist and to look for more and more new solutions. Emotional and cognitive control under pressure. So this sort of a state of Samatvam. Tolerance of negative effect. There are a lot of negativities, adversities, and yet we are able to tolerate it. The goal orientation, not losing sight of the long-term goal. A person resilient in one situation may not be so in another. It's a modifiable construct mediated by adaptive changes in several neural circuits. So it's not static, and it is not that I cannot develop it. That's what we are trying to say. These changes are mediated through complex interactions between environment and genetic influences. Now, what are the characteristics of resilient adolescents? They're highly empathetic. So developing empathy, they understand and sympathize with the feelings of others. Perseverance, they don't give up easily. Optimism, they see positives and believe in their personal strength. Relationships, they have a healthy relationship with one or more adults and maybe with a lot of their peers also. Internal locus of control, they trust in themselves and that, yes, I can do something, that I am able to process and maybe come up with solutions. They have a perspective. They see obstacles as challenges and not as dead ends. Humor. Sometimes a sense of humor also is quite important, and it helps you to tide over the difficult phases. Learning from experience, accept mistakes and learn from them without blaming things or others. Now, I know this is the forte of our Dr. Shrikanta, but this is something which is very dear to my heart. And I'm not reading the entire one. There is this If by Rudyard Kipling. if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or not be lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, very important, and treat those two imposters just the same. And so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance, run. Yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. I've just taken a few phrases. Now, this is the conclusion of my talk. I thought I'll keep the pathology to the end. Now, this probably another 2 3 minutes and I'll be done. Now, there was a very famous psychiatrist in London at the Institute of Psychiatry, Maudsley. His name was Sir Aubrey Lewis. He said depression is one of the great words of psychiatry, and probably even today it holds true. And what is depression? Depression is a mood disorder in which there is a persistent sadness or irritability or loss of pleasure. So basically, depression is a mood disorder where there is sadness, irritability, and the inability to enjoy. Loss of pleasure means the inability to enjoy what was normally enjoyable earlier. Why talk about it? Is it a common thing? If something afflicts people 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, why talk about it? But it's a common disorder with a lifetime prevalence of 15%. That means 15% of the population will experience depression sometime in their life. In the primary care setting, that is in a general practitioner's clinic, maybe 20% of the patients have depression, and it rivals hypertension, which is high blood pressure, BP, we call it BP. More common in women than in men, can occur at any age. So children can have it, adolescents can have it, emerging adults, the senior citizens. Now, what are the symptoms of depression? I'll just run through a few symptoms. Sadness or irritability in mood, loss of pleasure or inability to enjoy normally enjoyable activities, loss of enthusiasm, feeling helpless, hopeless, worthless. Now, worthless is I'm good for nothing. Hopeless is I don't have a future, nothing will improve. Helplessness, I can never get better. Whatever you try to do me, nothing can help me. So that is helplessness. Social withdrawal. A person who was outgoing, mingling with others, he becomes withdrawn, keeping to himself. Guilt, blaming oneself, loss of energy or fatigue. These people may start feeling fatigued right from the morning. I may feel fatigued towards the end of a hard day's work, but these people have low energy very early on in the day. Disturbed sleep. Sleep can be inability to sleep, or sometimes it may be excessive sleep. Disturbed appetite can mean very often loss of appetite, but sometimes there can be an increased appetite. Thoughts of death. Sometimes people think, what is the use of living? Is life worth living? Sometimes there may be suicidal thoughts. Somatic complaints. People have headaches, body pains, unexplained body pains. Absenteeism. They don't attend classes, they miss work, they don't go for playing. So, absenteeism. Is depression a distressing condition? It is a profoundly distressing condition to the individual. It damages self-esteem, physical well-being, relationships, and careers. And they say, almost 15% have distressing thoughts of wanting to harm themselves. Now, the course is, if you don't treat depression, it can last 6 to 9 months. Treatment shortens the duration. It is often episodic. 60% can have a repeat of the episodes. And as the course progresses, patients have more frequent episodes that can last longer. Over a course of 20 years, the mean number of episodes is 5 to 6. So the cause is complex. We won't get too much into this because of the time constraints, but both environmental factors, stress, and also genetic factors and disordered brain chemistry and brain circuitry may play a role. That's what I would like to say. And it is a highly treatable condition. I think people should seek help for it, medicines and talk therapies. I think that's probably the end of my presentation. And I would like to thank you for your patient listening. and I think I'll interact with you again at the question and answer session. Thank you very much. I would now like to invite Dr. Shrikanta for his talk. Please take over, Dr. Shrikanta.
Namaste, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Namaste.
Yes. Sadashiva Samarambam, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmatacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. Namaste, dearest students and scholars of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, the pinnacle institution of science in our country, the stars of Bharata science, the students and the scholars, and the revered teachers of IISc. First of all, thanks a million for this opportunity, a duty to our fellow men, to our Janmabhoomi. First of all, thanks to Bhanudev, Vikram Prabhu, all the professors, Nagasuma, Navakant, Professor Sont, everybody who has made this possible. And we look forward to be join hands on a long-term basis to make sure that our children, our students of this country, one institution, again, it should extend to the whole country, should achieve and excel in life. First of all, congrats, prayers to all ISC students, scholars, teachers, and your families. God bless you all. You will all be safe. Bharata will win. Humanity will win. I'm going to begin my presentation was titled Climb High, Climb Far, and Equanimity. Let me begin by sharing with you a short United Nations award-winning video made by a young poor girl from the village of Arsikere who has been challenged with type 1 diabetes. She won the award for her 120-second video. The title of the video is Children with Diabetes, Future Stars. The goal of my portion of the presentation is to prove to all the students and scholars of IISc that they are the stars of Bharata, the stars of the world. They are the stars of science. They will excel and achieve everything in life. So let me start this video from a poor child from Arsikere. 1 second. Are you seeing this? 1 second, 1 second. 1 second, 1 second. 1 second, 1 second. Give me a minute. You can see? Yeah. Yeah. 1 second. Can you hear also?
I am Spurti. I have type 1 diabetes. This is Dr. Shuchi, my diabetes doctor.
On an average, type 1 diabetes affects 1 in 500 children below the age of 20 years. Children with type 1 diabetes require insulin for survival. These children require 3 to 4 insulin injections every day, along with diet, exercise, and monitoring.
I am Rashmi. I have type 2 diabetes.
Due to increasing obesity and unhealthy lifestyle, type 2 diabetes is also increasing in children all over the world. These children can be treated with tablets initially and require lifestyle changes. Later on, they may require insulin, but there is a hope. Hope for healthy, better and bright future for all these children.
These are all my friends. They will tell you how to be healthy. I take my insulin injection daily without fail. I check my blood sugar several times a day and keep it in good control. I eat very healthy foods like vegetables and fruits. I do not eat unhealthy food like sugary drinks and junk foods. I love football and I never miss my game any day.
I don't smoke or take alcohol. I don't do drugs.
God is always kind to me.
My daughter will conquer the world.
My son is my greatest gift and wealth.
This is my message for all children with diabetes.
Climb high, climb far. Your goal is the sky, your aim is star.
I want to become a doctor like you.
I am a beautician.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a nurse. I take care of 400 diabetes children.
I'm an accountant.
I am an engineer.
I'm a financial analyst. I like riding motorcycles. Insulin pump is making my life easy.
I'm a biotech engineer and a business analyst. I'm not only a doctor, but a person with type 1 diabetes like you. Children with type 1 diabetes can live long, healthy lives when taken care of.
Together we will reach the stars.
Are you seeing the window? Now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is Spurti from Arsikere village who went to the United Nations to get her award for his 122nd video. She wants to become a doctor. Once upon a time, the family wanted to self-destruct themselves with hopelessness, but now she's on the top of the world. For those of you who may not know much, okay, in these unfortunate children, for no fault of theirs, their insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas are completely destroyed by an autoimmune process. Are you seeing the slides?
Yeah, but it's not in presentation mode. It's just the slides are there.
Okay. Now, one second. I've done the slide share. I don't know why. 1 second. Let me try again. It's happening. Yeah.
No, you are all right. There is a hourglass at the bottom which you have to click next to the 66%.
1 second. Please tell
There's
me.
an hourglass picture of icon on the bottom right.
On
Fourth
the bottom
from the left. Fourth from the left. Go below. Go further below. Yeah. There,
Microsoft
fourth one.
Teams.
Fourth one.
Microsoft Teams. Which screen?
No, Santi, I think you have shared only this window. If you can share your entire screen, I think the presentation will be visible.
Now can you see the entire presentation?
No. You when you shared your screen, you shared only this window. So you'll have to share.
One second. One second. Yeah, I'll do that. Give me 1 minute, sir. Okay. Okay. 1 second. Okay. 1 second. 1 second. Give me 1 minute, sir. Are you seeing now?
No, I think you've done the same thing. When you click on that share tray, just.
Okay, I'll go back again. Yeah. Okay, I'm clicking on the share screen. Yes.
Yeah, and just there will be an option that says screen. So screen 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just use that one.
Now? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, now it's here.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, in these unfortunate children, for no fault of theirs, their insulin producing beta cells of the pancreas are completely destroyed by an autoimmune process. Thus, along with oxygen and water, the lives of these children depends on multiple daily self-injections. Without insulin for even 12 to 24 hours, these children go into coma and die. Yet they all have learned to conquer their imposed deficiency with infinite hope and smiles and achieve the highest possible in all spheres of life. Let us remember, yes, insulin is their lifelong lifeline. Over the last 50 years of my own student and professional life across the world, I have personally learned over the last 50 years of my own student and professional life across the world, with its inherent and universal ups and downs, success and failures, joys and sadness, I too have personally learned several unique lessons from these several thousand divine children of ours with type 1 diabetes, and they continue to help me become a stronger and better doctor, scientist, and hopefully a better human being even today. Let me share with you few glimpses of some of these learnings which I learned from these smart, bright kids. In 1983, at the Elliot P. Jocelyn Children's Camp in Boston, when I went to collect blood samples of these children for my research project on islet cell autoantibodies, a child with diabetes had put up this poster in the dining hall. Climb high, climb far, your goal is the sky, your aim a star. Next, in 1987 at Camp Manmohan in Shimla, the 14-year-old Mr. Sandeep corrected the entire medical team from AIMS during our morning group session when he taught us. We all knew that when wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. And when character is lost, all is lost. Mr. Sandeep told us we were wrong. He changed it. When wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When character is lost, something is lost. And when health is lost, everything is lost. So health is number one. In 1992, Miss Usha Diman, India's longest survivor with type 1 insulin dependent diabetes, she got diabetes at the age of 7, and today she is a healthy, happy 70 years, taking 4 injections every day non-stop for 63 years and pricking her finger 4 times a day, lakhs of injections. She shared the secret of her success with the medical team. She gave us the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. When we take care of our children, they teach us more than what we do. As has been mentioned, health has been defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. It has been dwelt by my previous colleagues that health is a combination of physical well-being, mental well-being, social well-being. But there is a fourth dimension of health which is not spoken of as often and as with boldness and straightforward. That is, the fourth dimension is spiritual well-being, one who transcends physiology and psychology. As I was listening to the poem shared by Vikram Prabhu of Rudolph Kipling, I wanted to go through the poem once again. The poem totally summarizes the entire seminar, and already every point I wanted to make and what has been made by the two speakers is beautifully illustrated in this in that poem. So I suggest everybody, I'm going to go back to Google, download it, I'm going to frame it. It summarizes what all we wanted to say. Thank you, Prabhu. Now, the word spirituality, it's a dangerous word. It has nothing to do with religion. I'm not talking about religion. The fourth dimension, let us try. Spirituality means in touch with the deeper self and exploration of the purpose of life, the meaning of life, as people believe in some form that transcends physiology and psychology of human beings. It includes love, charity, purpose, principle, ethics, integrity, hope of life. Multiple forms, meditation, prayer, spiritual gatherings are organized to maintain spiritual health. I teach my patients, when Virat Kohli is hitting a century, he's totally meditating. He's not bothered about anything but to win for India. It can be music, it can be dance, it can be singing, it can be cooking. There are 100 million ways. People talk about science spirituality synthesis. The better term I find is synthesis of spiritual science and physical science. Both are equally important. Science is the quest of truth. In 2001, Professor H. Narasimhaya, many of you know, he was the founder of National Education Society, a PhD in nuclear medicine, requested me to give a talk, an endocrinologist. He said, you have spoken too much about diabetes endocrinology, talk something new. This was some experts which I put together. It is science, medicine, immortality and God. All of you do science, and youngest science is medicine. And we are work on the foundation of basic science. And what is the quest of all medicine? Immortality. We want to live. And where does God remain in the scheme of things? Let me remind you, the logo of Bengaluru Science Forum is question mark. Tadvidhi pariprashnena. Learn by repeated questioning. Question mark. So whatever I have learned in my 35, 40 years, I tried to put together. Bangalore Medical College, All India Institute, Duke and Harvard taught me physical science. My learning of spiritual science, I owe it to the learned Swamijis of the Sri Ramakrishna Mission and the Harvard MIT Vedanta Society. My teachers were doctors, scientists, engineers, PhDs who had taken monkhood to pursue this. What I understand, that life is two parts, the body and the matter, the soul and the spirit. This is the foundation of Vedanta of Bharata. The body and matter is impermanent, finite, mortal, ephemeral, unreality and false, because it is from dust to dust. Whereas the soul or the spirit is permanent, infinite, immortal, eternal reality, truth, which remains even after we become dust. One of the Dr. Prabhu elaborated a lot of concepts, and Prabhu is one of the very few psychiatrists I see who practice modern Western clinical psychiatry on a foundation of Indian spirituality. This is the Panchakosha concept, or the 5 sheaths. The 5 sheaths are Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. Physical, vital, mental, intellectual and bliss. Let me remind you, the first 4, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, belong to the realm of physical science, matter. That's what we are taught in MBBS, MDP, etc. The last one is Anandamaya Kosha, that belongs to the realm of spiritual science. The first 4 sheaths are physical science, which is an experimental science, whereas the last sheath, Anandamaya Kosha, is not an experimental science, it's an experiential science. Don't trust me. Young scholars of Indian Institute of Science, one day you will walk into the Massachusetts Institute of Technology across the Charles River in Boston. You enter the gate, you will find this inscription by Albert Einstein: science without religion is lame, Religion without science is blind. I don't use the word religion. It is spirituality. There is one more Indian physician scientist who from Andhra Pradesh who would have deserved more than couple Nobel Prizes. He died at the age of 52 in US, having made multiple discoveries. Google Yallapragada Subbarao, you will realize how many of his students have got Nobel Prize. On his bust in the laboratory of in the very research laboratories is inscribed, "Science simply prolongs life, religion deepens it." Let us come back. Many of you might have heard of Professor N.V.C. Swami. Professor N.V.C. Swami was the former director of IIT Madras, a hardcore physical scientist. But after his retirement, he spent rest of his life teaching two things at the Jigini Vivekananda Kendra. He taught Bhagavad Gita and Swami Vivekananda. And this is what he shares with his students. Have your feet firmly grounded in spirituality, hold your head high in science. Have your feet firmly grounded in spiritual science, hold your head high in physical science. There is no conflict of God versus man. It is God is man, that is the human spirit. You don't have to go to temples. You are all young. You will learn during the course. The definition of God is truth, knowledge, infinity, science. The Upanishads say, Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma. Existence, consciousness, bliss and eternal love. Sachidananda Swarupam Brahma. The Indian Vedantic thought considers the individual spirit in each one of us. Plant, trees, humans as Atman, individual God, and Brahman is the universal God. All drops in the ocean, entire ocean. This is all the sum and substance. Swami Vivekananda summarizes in a beautiful way. Man's real nature is divine. The aim of human life is to realize this divine nature. All religions are essentially in agreement. No need to elaborate. The essential, unchanging, eternal reality is the Atman Brahman. Again, true. The individual is called the Atman, the universal is called the Brahman. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divine within by controlling nature, external and internal. This applies to man, animals, plant, etc. Do this by work or karma yoga, worship or bhakti yoga, or philosophy or gnana yoga. When you are working in IISc, doing your experiment, pursuing you, that is the highest form of karma yoga. By one or more, all of this and you will be free. See the beauty of his last sentence. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples and forums are but secondary details like A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, alpha, beta. They are only symbolic. A few words of inspiration in Margadarshan which has been infused to me by my teachers. Shraddha hi Parama Gati. This was the logo of my high school, National High School. Uttishta, Jagrita, Prapyavara Nibodhata. This is from the Upanishads, which Swami Vivekananda emphasized a lot. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. That's what you are all doing. You will do it. Nai gnanena sadrusham pavitram. There is nothing as pure as knowledge. Now coming from Upanishads to more recent times, Mahatma Gandhi says, let your life be your message. Be the change you want to be. But even more powerfully, Swami Vivekananda tells in only 3 words, be and make. What does be and make be? It means individual transformation. Each one of us is fundamental to societal reconstruction. Now, success and failure. This is a very important point. Dr. Prabhu and all have mentioned it and have some relevance to mental health, etc. Do not worry. All of us go through it. All of us, including the speakers, have had success and failures. All teachers today, it's part of life. All of would have gone up and down with joy and failure, depression, etc. of different degrees. My grandma at home and my parents were the at-home psychiatrists. Success and failure is immaterial. Lord Krishna advised very powerfully, Karmanye vadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palaye turbu mate sangosva karmani. One of the most powerful verses of Bhagavad Gita. Your right is to duty alone, but not to the fruit thereof. Let not the fruit of action be your object, nor you let your attachment be to inaction. Your duty, yes, even as a postdoc, years together my projects and experiments have failed, but you don't have to give it up. But one day you get the light of the tunnel. It is our job is to do our duty. Our job is not to succeed. Your right is to duty and duty alone, but not to the fruit thereof. Let not the fruit of action be your object, nor let your attachment be to inaction. We do our duty. Success and failure come on their own. This is the word about equanimity, which Dr. Prabhu mentioned. Yeah, in biology, we talk of homeostasis, maintenance of the constancy of the internal environment, keeping our oxygen, blood pressure, blood cholesterol, blood sugar all in balance. That is physical homeostasis. Spiritual homeostasis is equally important. And this is very nicely explained in the next verse of the Gita. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhyor asiddhyor samay bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Siddhi asiddhi, success and failure are same. Success, failure, pain, pleasure, joy, sadness are all the same. We have to move ahead in life. Be steadfast in yoga, O Arjuna. Perform your duty and abandon all attachment to success or failure. Such evenness of mind, homeostasis, is called yoga. Do your job, the results will come on their own. Abdul Kalam has also told in a very beautiful way, every failure is a stepping stone for success. You read the story of ISRO, the Tumba rocket station. You should know that ISRO station was a church. It was Mary Magdalene Church. When Vikram Sarabhai decided to go and ask the Pastor Father Joseph, give your church, I have to start the Tumba station, he was worried. But when he told the audience that here is a scientist called Vikram Sarabhai who wants to start the space program, and here is me, a pastor, preaching you goodness in life. Both me and Vikram Sarabhai are doing the same for good of the world. So let us give the church to Vikram Sarabhai. So all of you should know, ISRO started their operations in the Mary Magdalene Church in near Trivandrum. This is one of my teachers of the Harvard MIT Vedanta Society. Taught us, do well, earn well, but try to give little more than you take from this world. He was one of my powerful teachers, one of the senior most monks of the Ramakrishna mission. One day when I was of your age, student's age, going through all this, one of his sermons, he shouted at all of us, don't be a creeper, be a tree. I never knew where this statement came. I came to know 10 years later, it is from Yajurveda. So we need to be strong. You are all strong. Okay, now Indian Institute of Science. What a mecca of science for this country. You all learn, achieve and excel. I have few points to share with you. In the end, a word about India, the land of Bharata. Dear young scientists, please go anywhere in the world, any moon or planet under the sun. All of you should go out and experience the world even for a short time. Do your training, do your postdoc fellowship, achieve and conquer. Still you will realize that Bharata is the best country, it's the best culture and best people. Make Bharata great again. Help Bharata regain her ancient heritage in science, spirituality. India was one of the foremost in the world. Help all of you young ones, help India regain her ancient heritage and Vasudhaiva Kutukambakam. Lastly, remember Janani Janmabhumisha Swargadapi Gariyasi. Our team had the good fortune through the blessing of Navakan. From last 7 years, we are actively working with Indian Institute of Science even for PhD program. But before I conclude, I want to I might have bored the students with lot of philosophy. Now let me come down to the earth. Your life is in 3 phases. Phase 1 is 1 to 30 years. You have learned, you have excelled, read, excel, work hard. In this phase of life, you are worshipping Lord Sri Saraswati and Sharada. Next phase of your life is 31 to 60 years. Continue to learn, work, serve. Please, each one of you make tons of money in crores, not lakhs. Translate your discoveries into become the best scientists, best entrepreneurs. Set up your business, make in lakhs and crores, but also start giving. What both the Bible and the Torah and our scriptures say, we need to give 10% of what we earn to our fellow citizens, and we enjoy the remaining 60%. Then all of us will reach the third phase, 61 to 90 years. And I'm in that phase. Myself, Banu are in that phase. We should continue to learn and try to share. Finally, there are 2-3 points. Forget about all the philosophy I have told you. Okay. You all dear students, eat well. Eat the best food you like. You exercise. You sing. You dance. You enjoy yourself sports. Watch movie. Learn and enjoy. But at the same time, enjoy your science equally. 2 points. Remember, each one of you is very special. Never compare yourself with anybody. Their research may be good. They may have 100 papers. You may have only 2 papers. Don't bother. You are special. And one more, aim high. But one thing which I learned from my teacher, when I got my MBBS degree, my examiner told me, Professor Das, young man, aim high, 100. Don't bother if you achieve only 10. But if you aim only 10, you may achieve only 1. So aim high, don't bother how much you achieve. Now, family, friends and teachers are most important. Forget philosophy. Your family, your friends, your teachers are very crucial. And the 3 main words are love, care and share. You know Deepika Padukone, she has a foundation. I love the philosophy very much. Let me remind you name of Deepika Padukone's foundation. It is live, love and laugh. Number 1, live. For that you have to be very healthy. Then you love yourself first. First yourself, your family, etc. Laugh. Live, love and laugh. You can achieve this by love, care and share. Learn, enjoy, excel. Sorry, I might have bored you. Take good care. Conclude. Frame the Rudolph Kipling's poem in your room and you will all conquer the world. God bless you all. Thank you very much. I have extended the time. This was a rare opportunity. Thank you for I have exceeded the limit. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Now the floor is open for questions. Thank you all. Over to Sonti, etc. Over to the ISC team.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhatt, Dr. Prabhu, and Dr. Srikanta for an engaging and a very informative evening. And thank you for your time. Now, if the members audience have any questions, they can pose.
May I kick off with the first question, Professor Sonti?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would request Dr. Vikram Prabhu to tell all of us, I know the difference, but tell all of us the difference between endogenous and exogenous depression, because I think that was one of the things, points you raised with me, because their management is totally different, the causes are totally different. Dr. Vikram Prabhu, please.
Unmute. That's a very good question. Now, depression gets classified as endogenous, exogenous, other term that was used for this was also reactive depression. But today, the way we would conceptualize this is depression is depression. In other words, it's a clinical syndrome. And the reactive component may be referring to the stressors. There is a stress. Now, for example, I lose, very often we see, I lose a precious object or a relative or a friend, or I have a failure, and then I go into a state of depression. Now, if you keep in light of what I mentioned earlier during my talk of allostasis, all these events, we can call them life events. There's a great body of scientific literature that deals with life events. So those life events are a source of stress. And as I was mentioning, it is the event which is quite severe or that overwhelms me. I was talking about allostatic load. That overwhelms my system and my coping is deficient at that point of time, and I go into a state of depression. So I would say, in a way, I'm hijacked by the stressor. And then once I go into the state of depression, it is like any other depression. Depression may be mild, moderate, or severe, but depression is depression. So that is reactive depression, where, in other words, there is a identifiable stressor. Now, this endogenous depression that you refer to is someone comes and says, Doctor, I'm feeling depressed and I don't know why. I have everything. I have no problems financially. Everything is okay at home. I don't know why I'm feeling like this. So that is something that has come from within or de novo. That de novo or from within is that endogenous depression. In other words, there is no identifiable stressor. Now, they may have other vulnerabilities. For example, a very strong genetic loading, or there may be, there are other forms of depression. For example, seasonal depression. So when you cannot identify anything, any cause, it is referred to as endogenous depression. But the clinical presentation may be quite similar. So today, this endogenous and reactive depression, not many of us subscribe to, but it is a useful concept or a classification to understand the patient and to treat. Because if it is there is a reactive component, then it has implications for treatment because we address the reaction or the reactive component and also help the person to cope better in future.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Dr. Vikram Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Prabhu, I had a question for you.
Yes.
I believe there are questionnaires that are made or prepared, which if an individual answers, you can get an idea of the individual's orientation. Whether he's a cheerful person or various categories. How reliable is that, and is it normally used by institutes to figure out in the beginning what is the kind of person we are facing? Is it common across the world, or in India is it used?
These questionnaires, there are several what we would call scales. Now, for example, there are scales for personality. For example, there is something called the TQI, the temperament personality questionnaire, which is developed by one Dr. Bob Cloninger. And this has been validated across cultures, even in India. This person is based, where I trained. You can check this out, Bob Cloninger or Robert Cloninger. So it's validated across cultures. For depression also there are scales. For example, there is the Beck inventory, Montgomery, Ashberg. So these scales are there for personality disorders, for anxiety disorders, for depression. It depends what you're trying to screen. And, Dr. Shrikanta quite often uses this PHQ, for health, GHQ, sorry, general health questionnaire, where they try to screen. So these screening tools are indeed useful. They are all validated questionnaires or scales. And I think, it is good to sometimes people use it for research where you want to quantify and you also want to measure the outcome at the beginning prior to treatment and after treatment, what is happening. So definitely they are useful scales.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
There are any further questions from the audience?
Yes,
Suresh,
can I
please.
ask? Yeah, right. So my question is to Dr. Prabhu. Very learned talk, all three of you. I just have one question. Many times our students and we as faculty want to be able to identify if anybody is depressed. How easy it is for us who are not trained.
Okay, that's a very good question. In other words, there is this, for example, I'll be very open as a psychiatrist and as doctors, health professionals, it's our duty to society to create awareness. The way Dr. Shrikanta has sensitized and uh, people towards diabetes, that also removes the stigma. So for example, I would like to recommend that that's why I said mental health matters. There is no health without mental health. And when this can be tackled on several fronts, I would say. One way is to create public awareness. For example, Dr. Shrikanta spoke about our celebrity actress Deepika Padukone. When she came out into the open, a lot of stigma was removed, and everyone was talking about depression. And David Beckham, for example, the football player, he has talked about his OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. There is this Kitty Dukakis. Dukakis was a presidential candidate in the United States. Her husband was the governor of Massachusetts. So she has written a book about her experience with depression. So this can be at various levels, but at a campus level, what I would say is, if I was told you have a wellness center, so you can put a sign over there that people are welcome to walk in for problems of any kind, physical or mental. And this can be mentioned. I would say, I'm sure there is a strong tradition of mentoring on your campus. So the mentors should probably be watchful. They should be on the lookout for any, red flags, any kind of change of behavior. What was the person earlier? Is there a departure or a change in the person? I was talking about absenteeism, for example. If you find that the person's productivity, it is all what the person used to be and whether there is a change or a departure. If you notice that, that's a red flag. Another thing would be the expression of a person. What was the person like earlier? What's the person now? If you notice, then you can have an open-ended question. For example, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I help you in any way? This kind of offering attitude will make them more comfortable with you, more confiding in you. This is something I would recommend all the faculty to develop. And at the wellness center, you can encourage people to walk in for anything. If you have some counselors, some people whom you can speak to, then I think that would be the first point of contact where you can probably evaluate. And if the person is reporting something that probably warrants greater clinical evaluation, then you can always refer the person to a trained either a psychologist or a psychiatrist and take it further. So this openness. And the other thing I would also like to bring into the limelight is stigma, the fear of being labeled, ostracized. What will people think of me? It is okay. I would say we must emphasize that these disorders are common. Anyone can develop these disorders. It's so common, maybe 1 out of 5. These are global statistics, by the way, and that these are treatable, that there is always help at hand, and it is not a sign of weakness. See, that's a very important point. Anyone can have this. A president, in United States, I think Teddy Roosevelt had bipolar disorder. There are so many examples that we can give. Nobel laureates, who have had, but they have been very productive and functional. So it is not that if you seek psychiatric help or help for your mental well-being, everything is wrong. So we need to destigmatize and say these are legitimate conditions. It's okay to seek help.
Yes. Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. Bhatt has his hand raised. Does he have a question or?
That was right at the beginning.
Okay.
But I want to add on to Dr. Prabhu, and there is a little catch in the way these youngsters present, and how do we get around that? And that is, he said that sensitization and stigma removal is terribly, terribly important. But whilst in the armed forces and whilst as a doctor, I have seen junior soldiers sit in their guard room, and we have, it's a very close knit family. We watch them closely all the time, and he puts the trigger into his jaws because he's got a loaded gun, and we never knew he was depressed. Secondly, I had this is just an example. There are plenty of examples. We had a young junior doctor, and he was one of the most mischievous young junior doctor. He would tease the nurses, hide under the table when we went on a ward round and things like that. One day he didn't come to the clinic ward, and when we sent someone to find where he is, he was found hanging from the ceiling. So they are able to conceal also their motives and their depression. And only sometimes parents know, but they don't make it obvious, and suddenly they take a very impulsive decision that life is not worth it. And how do we get around that is my question.
This is a very nice point that you have made. I really have to say that there is, you spoke about reactive and endogenous depression. There is also something described in the literature, and that is called smiling depression. Smiling depression. Someone ends up like this, ends his or her life, and then you say, what? I was seeing him every day, and that person was cheerful, bubbly, smiling. But then, see, that is the objective finding, what you have seen outside. Sometimes it's only a facade, and what is felt inside subjectively may be very different. And so I do agree with you. But also, a lot of times, see, I'll be very open about this. There is this trait of impulsivity where at the spur of the moment people do something and they can also harm themselves. So in our country especially, a lot of impulsivity is there. Now that forms a different class. Sometimes some argument, something, and these people have poor impulse control. They don't have much of self-regulation, self-introspection, they are unable to do all that, and then they do something rash. So I do agree with you. The other thing is what you said, some red flags. That is why I said it is important. Someone appears despondent, is withdrawn. Sometimes these behavioral manifestations or changes may be subtle. So it is important to catch that. One more thing I would like to highlight is, sorry, you were talking about alcohol in moderation. In our society, especially in Bangalore, I always joke with the patients that I say that it is so easy to procure alcohol in Karnataka, in Bangalore. You give me a stone, and if I throw it, it will go and land in a place where alcohol is available. See, I highlight this. If I can just elaborate like a little bit, this is of great public health importance. Number one, alcohol abuse or use is very much prevalent in our country also and in Bangalore. And what happens is, if people are depressed, it can impair their judgment. So it's in a way a double whammy. Alcohol and all these psychiatric disorders, so, especially depression. And in that state, a lot of people tend to harm themselves. The other thing I also want to say, it may make them more impulsive. Other thing I want to say is, uh, there is a book, I haven't read it personally, but the title is very provocative. It says, Alcohol, No Ordinary Commodity. Please Google this. It's alcohol, no ordinary commodity. And I would like to highlight this because I know a lot of students are watching this. So I would like to say, there's a lot of literature. There are very provocative papers that are written. Are you drinking your neurons away? What happens when you consume alcohol? Okay, I'll conclude by one very important message. Once I happened to meet, there's a very prominent researcher. His name is Dr. David Nutt, Nutt. He's a very prominent, I think he's at the University of Cambridge. he is an expert on alcohol, and he said any alcohol by itself is not poisonous, but when you drink alcohol, your liver converts it into acetaldehyde, and these are his exact words: all acetaldehyde is pure poison. So it is the acetaldehyde which is injurious or deleterious to health. So it has got effects on the brain and on the entire body. So this has got implications for prevention, staying away from alcohol, especially try to avoid alcohol before the age of 21, because it may produce enduring changes in the brain. That is very important. Why isn't alcohol sold to people less than 18 or 21 in UK? So I would advise youngsters, definitely don't have your first drink before 21. Avoid alcohol even thereafter. I would advocate that, but definitely avoid before 21. This had a public message, public health message. That's why I was trying to emphasize. Also other substances, lot of marijuana use in Bangalore, so easily available. All this has got effects on the brain. They are toxic to the brain. The diet that you refer to, the body self-image, obesity, you were talking, all this are coping styles. All this, the wellness component needs to be emphasized to prevent all these disorders. Suicide in the armed forces is a very special topic. I do agree with you, sir. You probably have greater experience in dealing with that than me. I would, in all humility, I would say that.
Just one thing, we didn't talk about smoking okay. No, I'm muted. In all our health seminars, we call the smoking as the biggest poison, smoking as the biggest killer in the world, and I don't know why governments don't ban it. It kills more than drugs and everything. Smoking, alcohol, and the drugs, and red meat, the trans fats, butter and ghee. So there is so many aspects. The first poison is smoking.
There is one.
That's a very important point. They also say, you see, smoking may be a form of, not in all people, but a lot of people, there are studies that a lot of people who smoke, when they have their dose of nicotine, it calms them down. So a lot of those people may have anxiety disorders. Not all, but a lot of them may have anxiety disorders, and there may be certain disorders which begin early in childhood. For example, there is this entity called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which starts before the age of, 7 or 11 years of age. Starts early on. Now, more common in boys. They are the ones who are highly vulnerable to drinking early, to start smoking and using of drugs. It's a very important point to bear in mind. Yes, sir, I would agree with you. Totally agree with you.
I think I'm hogging the screen all the time. One last question again for Dr. Vikram Prabhu. Reactive depression, I find, is more serious amongst the senior citizens rather than the youngsters. Youngsters are impulsive, we know. Any disagreement with the girlfriend, she ditches him or something, they take all sorts of poison. In India, it was previously organophosphorus insecticides. In Western countries, it's paracetamol as an overdose. But they do it and they then don't want to die. They ask for help. When the psychiatrist talks to them, they say, no, it was, I had alcohol, like you said. They drown their sorrow with alcohol, gulp a whole bottle of paracetamol and attempt to commit suicide. But an elderly chap who's got reactive depression, that is, his wife has died, and she has died because he neglected her and didn't take her seriously for a headache, and then she turned out to have a brain tumor, and she dies. He doesn't feel that it's worth living, both guilt feeling and loss of his dear one, and they go and jump in front of the oncoming train or a bus. So I think we need to look at the older people also, that reactive depression in them is terribly serious. It has to be taken with great amount of, given a lot of importance. Anyway, that's my comment.
I would like to add, that's again a very important point. Sorry, there is this person at Duke University. He used to be at Duke, Dan Blazer. He's a psychiatrist. You can look up his name. He has done a lot of work on depression in the elderly. Now, I want to make this point on this forum because they say spirituality in the elderly is a protective factor. for depression. The second thing is loneliness. When you have the empty nest syndrome, the children have gone away and they are somewhere else, and there is this loneliness and isolation which can play a very important role in precipitating depression. They become vulnerable, and so that's a risk factor. One more important point. See, we are dealing with Samatvam diabetes. Having diabetes is a risk factor for developing depression. It's a bi-directional influence. Depression predisposes you to have diabetes. People with diabetes have a high incidence of depression. And one more important point, in our country, a lot of elderly people have what we would call multiple white matter changes in the brain, or lacunar infarcts. And this is called vascular depression. If you image a lot of elderly people with depression, you will find that they have, subcortical or white matter changes. And this is a physical form of depression. So there may be multiple forms of depression, but the important point is to treat it, sir. So if this is treatable, so the treatment may be addressing the psychological issues, the psychosocial issues, and also the medicines. Good control of hypertension, good control of diabetes protects the brain. Very important.
One last thing, as a primary care physician, not as a psychiatrist, the stigma portion is important. When I refer my patients in the clinic, I feel they need help. They say, why should I go? We tell them having depression is like having fever. If you have fever, you're going to take paracetamol or infection. So I'm going to send him to Vikram Prabhu. He's the happiness doctor. He will give tablets for a while. There is no difference between fever, headache, vomiting, diarrhea, and depression. Mental health is physical health. So the first thing, the doctor should be sensitive. They should tell the patient it's not a stigma. And I tell my patients, I have gone through depression, I have taken it, you take it. It's a question of talking, it's a question of empathy, and patients do it. And primary care doctors should not ignore the depression. They have to give equal importance. Sometimes I feel mental health kills and troubles more than the rest of the body. Mental health is also a physical health.
Absolutely, sir. I'm in total agreement.
Okay. That was a very enlightening and informative evening, and we are very, very grateful to Samatvam and particularly the doctors and psychiatrists who've come here, given their time and their care and their attention and love. Thank you very much. And we would like to keep in touch with you. I mean, we would like to keep this as an initiative so that we meet again and we go into deeper topics. This was the first interaction. I hope that's okay with you.
Venkat, can I make a small point?
Yeah, please.
Before you conclude. Yeah. Samatvam is about 30 plus years. We have done a lot of camps and community education programs. There is a saying, Chinese proverb, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. It is education, awareness, sensitization, like Deepaka Live, Love and Love Foundation. Our institution is headed by the former Chief Justice of India, M.N. Venkatachalaya, who was the chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, Chief Justice of India. From the part of Samatvam, last 8 years we are working very actively, PhD programs, etc. Lot of ISC students come. We love them. We are trying to help them with the vaccination, etc. We offer our voluntary services on a long-term basis, permanent basis. We have a good number of volunteers. If IASC can take a lead, and if you create a good program, Healthy Minds, Happy Minds, to destigmatize, we run helplines. We run diabetes helplines. Under Vikram Prabhu's leadership, we can organize it's a serious project. If you think it is helpful, any student of IASC needs to pick up a phone. We can try to create. There are a lot of volunteers who want to work, mental counselors, specialists, etc. Think over. That is one idea. In your wellness center, if there is a special section on mental health run by somebody, we can give them volunteers. They can call us 24/7. We can give a list of names. Second one is, I think this story is a long story. It should not be a one-up affair. We thought once in 2 months, once in a month, you should have an inspirational talk. You can get Deepika, you can get Anil Kumble, you can get a sportsman, you can get a scientist, Kotar Narayana. Somehow we should, or a musician. As a student, we have all gone through this thing. So create a forum so that there are smiles on the faces of the students, and we want to contribute to the smiles. Consider inspirational talks, not about general talks, sportsmen, musicians. Just a suggestion.
Okay, sure. Suresh, would you like to say something before we conclude?
No, I just want to thank all the three speakers. They're very, very learned talks, and I think we really benefited a lot. And since we have recorded with your permission and with the permission from our wellness center, we'll post it on the website for everybody else to see who could not attend today. And thank you for valuable time. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Deep.